It was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine. Salt and pepper and heavy D up in the limousine. Hanging pictures on my wall. Every Saturday, rapping back with the magic holy moon. I let my tape rock till my tape pop. Smoking weed a damn boom, tipping on top stop. Way back when I had the ready black lumberjack. With the hat to match. Remember rapping dude? The hard, never used to get hot for taking this far. Now I'm in the limelight cause I really like time to get big, look up like the world trade. Born killer, the opposite of the winner, when I used to eat sardines for dinner. Eat the raw cheese, juicy beef, chicken free. Plus, master, plus, heat. I'm going up like it's on the
Here we go. Here we go. Good morning. First ever RE Hustle. Got on here with our podcast. This is Mario Mitchell. I've got Chad Hawley with me.
Hey, everybody.
Wanted to just get a little, little real estate fun. We want to talk about our screw ups, which lead to buildups. That's kind of the theme of everything on this podcast. And we're just kind of let it go and just have a little bit of fun. Chad, how's it going, brother? How's your morning
going?
Good.
That's good, man. Just trying to stay busy with all these, with all this craziness going on, and focusing a lot on marketing and, of course, stuff that we've got going on. But yeah, it's good. How about yourself?
Hey, last night was fun. Watched a little bit of replay on some of the NBA outdoor hoops. I mean, there's not a lot going on out there, but what do you see recently? I know that the Panthers just topped Christian McCaffrey as the all-time most highest paid running back. What are your thoughts on that right now?
I think it's smart to do it soon, like as soon as they did. The lifespan for running backs in the NFL seems like it's so short these days. But he's definitely he's the workhorse of that team. I mean, that was super apparent as far as the last season went with how much they used him. So I think the kid's talented. So I think at the end of the day, he's worth it. Whether he'll be able to make it through all the way through that contract, we'll see, just because of the usage. I mean, again, it's tough to be a running back. I couldn't imagine it, man. They're just getting hit on every play. Well, I think one of the good things about McCaffrey is he's got that little bit of elusiveness to him, so maybe he doesn't take the big hit all the time.
Yeah. The other day when we were talking, you had thrown that out there, that stat on, where is he from? The Rams.
Oh, Gurley. Todd Gurley.
Todd, yeah.
Well, even with him, he was a little different situation too, because he had a knee issue coming out of Georgia. But obviously, he had a couple massive years where he was by far and away the best running back in the NFL. And then, a couple years ago in the Super Bowl, that knee kind of went a little balky, and all of a sudden the usage dropped off. And then lo and behold, he, gets cut by the Rams this year. He's probably one of their best offensive players. But so you kind of wonder with that, just, where the injuries are and how much we really don't know what goes on behind the scenes in the NFL and even sports in general about injuries, right?
Right. I hear that. Well, let's do this real quickly since this is our first time getting out there. Let's do a little quick introduction. Why don't you give me, something real quick about you, kind of give a little bit of background, how we got to know each other, and then what brought you into real estate.
Sure. So obviously I met you, 25, almost 26 years ago. Actually knew your brother Jesse a little bit longer. Jesse and I were friends in high school. We kind of met, I think, our senior year originally, playing rival basketball at different high schools. And it really wasn't, though, until probably our sophomore year in college when we really kind of hooked back up, and through basketball, of course, playing at the open gyms, and just, I think you and I just clicked as far as our friendship goes, and obviously it's been a long-lasting one. We've been friends ever since. I swear at this point, I still think my grandmother likes you more than she likes me. She always asks about you. And then as far as real estate, I ended up graduating from the Citadel back in 2005 while I was in the Navy. I was in the Navy for about 6 years. Graduated from the Citadel. Just recently graduated with my master's. I finished that online. Yeah, how about that? Finally heard back from them yesterday. They're sending my diploma out in a couple days,
Nice.
so that'll be nice. Now I just got to figure out, how to use it in real estate. But as far as real estate goes, you and I, you've been in real estate a lot longer than I have, about 17 years?
Yeah, roughly there.
So, back in, what was it, like 2008, 2009, I came up to DC with you and got my real estate license there, worked it for a few months. And then of course I had 2 younger kids at that time, and ended up going back to Florida and then kind of doing my own thing and struggling with the corporate lifestyle and all that kind of stuff. And finally, as my kids got older, I was like, man, I got to do something on my own. And that's when a couple of years ago, decided to move up here to Charlotte and come work with you again. Took me a little bit to get my license again. Got it just a few months ago. Perfect timing for COVID. But
wow.
yeah, right. But at this point, learned a lot over the last couple of years from you and from just kind of working with the agents on our team and stuff. So it's been good. I'm looking forward to things getting back to a little bit normal so that I can start doing some more with my license versus just doing, some of the operations director stuff that I'm doing for the team.
That's awesome, man. Great. For those of you out there, fortunate enough to let us into your computers and watch us during this podcast. I'll give you a little bit of background on me. Chad mentioned it as he already did, 20 odd-ish years ago, 25 maybe. We definitely met each other, did a lot of outdoor basketball, and then some basketball against each other in high school. So that's kind of where we met. But for me, I started in the business, 2005, really 2004-ish. Got into the business there. Started off, I was a cold caller. What I did is I would sit in the basement of this Remax office, and my mentor at the time would give me a yellow page book and just say, hey, man, just start dialing. Gave me a script, and I just called and just said, hey, we sold a house on this street, 123 Main Street. If we can net you this amount of money, would you be interested in selling the next 3 to 6 months? And then set appointments for them. And all I did was a call for 8 to 10 hours a day. It was amazing because the amount of money I was making, though my commissions were super low, it was still a lot of money to me based on the jobs that I was doing. So that's how I started. I was trained eventually thereafter by Mike Ferry, who's a well-known name inside of our industry, and taught me how to reach out to for sale by owners and expireds and return listings, and built my business that way. I've always been a team player as a past athlete. Being on teams is a big deal to me. That's more of a family to me. But I learned a lot of mistakes, and I learned best that way, which is kind of, the growth of this podcast is all about where screw ups become buildups. So there's going to be a lot of that kind of talk going on moving forward about all the screw ups that I have made, and hopefully Chad will share some of his screw ups. I think in today's day and age, I think it's better that
I've never screwed up.
No, you never, not once. I can tell by the Starry Night. Let's start right there. I think in this day and age right now, there's a lot of, I think we need to just dial it back a little bit and be real, right? Let's talk about, what we did, where our failures are, because it's within our failures that we tend to really start to see growth. And I think that's something where I'd like to focus with our podcast. And be real with it. You know what I mean? We want to talk about sports. Chad and I, it's very important to us, especially now with quarantine going on and, COVID-19. There ain't a lot of sports on TV right now to watch. In fact, it's just dialing back many, many years, and watching different franchises and seeing how they got there. But if you really dial it back, if you really start to invest in who those athletes are, there was a lot of screw ups that got them to be as good as they are. And I think those are the things that we want to talk about moving forward. But 17 years-ish in business. We have a team right now. It's called the Mitchell Team by MitchellHomes.com. We've got 12 agents, and we are rocking and rolling where our goals are to do 60 million prior to COVID-19. With that little bit of pivot, we're going to see what we can do on this annual basis. But we're gonna do what we can. We're going to rock and roll. We're going to have some fun. So with that, let's dial into it. Let's talk about one of your most memorable screw ups. And it doesn't have to be real estate related. Just something that you learned a lot from that happened to you. It could be in your childhood, your young teenage. Where you got it?
Golly,
Give me one
man.
to share, and I'll share back.
You know, I'm going to go to college experiences. So right out of high school, I went to University of Maryland. I grew up in a very small rural area, as you know. My high school graduating class was, 72 people. All right, so very small area. So I grew up wanting to go someplace big. I wanted to live in a big city. I wanted to live somewhere where there was a lot going on. So I ended up going to University of Maryland out of high school, and I got to Maryland, and there's 60,000 students at that time back in the early 90s that would be on campus at one time. So I had DC 15 minutes away from me. I had Baltimore 45 minutes away from me. Needless to say, I ended up never going to class. And I left Maryland after my 3 years there, a whole lot of student loan debt and with a 1.98 GPA. Not very good. And I consider myself a really smart
pre-med or no?
Man, I was pre-med, I was pre-law, I was an English major, I was all over the place. I think I changed every year. I was like, no, I'm going to go do this. Once I took biology and was like, man, I'm not going to this class. You can't pass biology, I don't think, if you don't go to class. But regardless of all that, so I ended up, I was going to transfer to IUP. I was all transferred. I was going to transfer to IUP in the University of Pennsylvania with you. And then started working for the summer before I was supposed to transfer up. And I was like, holy cow, look, I got money coming in all the time. This is awesome. So took a few years off. And then, in 2000 is when I enlisted in the Navy. I really wanted to go back to college, get my degree. And the Navy was the easiest way in my mind to do that because it would pay for my school, all that kind of good stuff. I worked my butt off in the nuclear program with the Navy, ended up getting picked up for an officer program. So they sent me to school for my college degree and become an officer. So that's how I ended up at the Citadel. So the biggest lesson that I learned was at the Citadel, one of the rules was you could only miss 7 classes in a semester. And if you miss more than 7, they gave you an automatic F. So I'm not going to say I made it to every class, but as an officer candidate, I made it to pretty much every one. And it wasn't like I had to study any more than I did at Maryland, but just being in class let me, hear and absorb the material. So that was a huge life lesson to me was, to kind of follow through with your commitments. Like if you're going to pay money for something, or if you're doing something like that, like make sure you're serious about it and take advantage of the opportunities you have. So that was probably it. That was a huge life lesson. And I raised both of my kids. I have 2 daughters. They're now 18 and 22. Got one that's going to be graduating high school this year, and another one that's, works full time and goes to school part time. I raised both of them telling them that they didn't have to go to college right after high school. I wanted them to be ready and committed to going college. When they graduate, if they didn't feel like they could go to college and put their whole effort into studying, I didn't want them wasting their time. I wanted them to go work for a while, see what the real world's like, so that when they decided to go to school, they were committed to it and got the most out of it they possibly could.
Man, look at that. That's intense. I like it.
Yeah.
So you took a lot away learning how to invest money. Where are you at now with your student loans? Where's that going?
Oh, we don't want to talk about that.
You don't want to talk about that?
No, they're still out there. Well, because I just finished my graduate degree. So, when I left Maryland, man, I think I had probably about 45 or 60,000 in student loan debt because I was an out-of-state student, so it was a higher tuition, which was silliness. And then so I was paid it off here and there, and a lot of times working the jobs I was working. I told you that corporate life, the inside sales thing, it didn't pay real well. So not a lot of whole stuff getting paid off there. But and then I just finished my grad degree through Southern New Hampshire. Got my master's in data analytics. So at this point, it's going to be start time to paying those back because now that the in-school deferment's gone. Although with COVID, also that deferment or forbearance. So I'm safe for a little while. Yeah.
Well, I'll share one of mine for you guys out there. I'm gonna dial this back to my young teenage years. As you know, I love basketball, but there was this point in time where I was not very good listener and didn't care about a lot of things. So I ran away a lot. And anyways, So this one point in time, I had run away, and I was running. I was on the streets, and I was just dying to play basketball. I couldn't find a place to play basketball. I didn't have a basketball, mind you. I was just with my sneakers on and just running up and down the street at like 12 years old. So I came across this little middle school, and I was like, man, they got a gym inside there. I'd love to play basketball in there. So I just was, ambitious and silly. So I climbed up on top of the school, went through the air conditioning ducts, got inside of the school that way because all the doors were locked, obviously. And then as I was climbing through the air conditioning ducts, I fell through the roof onto a table, which was, I guess, a teacher's table. But I landed on my feet, luckily. But then I fell down. So I hit my feet and then fell off the ground onto the ground. And then I got up and started walking around the school trying to figure out where the gym was. I found the gym. There was obviously a rack of basketballs in there. And I sat in there and just played basketball. I couldn't even tell you how many hours I was in there playing basketball. But when I did leave, it was sometime in the morning. And when I left, it was nighttime. So I just had played all by myself for many, many hours. And then when I got out of the school, I didn't think twice about how to leave. I just walked out the door. But what I did when I walked out the door is set off an alarm. So the alarm went off and I just started running. I'm like, oh crap. So I started running and eventually they caught up with me because what I learned in that situation was, yeah, this is cool. It was thrilling. I broke in, I played basketball by myself, though I wish I had social media. I probably would have taped it. Didn't have that. So anyways, the police finally caught up to me and they had asked me, what were you doing? I'm like, nothing. Where are you going? It's late at night. You're young. Why are you still out here? I was like, I'm going home. So they asked me to look at the bottom of my feet. And I was like, why you want to look at my feet? So I picked up my shoe. And of course, when I fell through the ceiling, what I learned from this whole situation is that the soot from the ceiling tiles had put all this powder on the table. And when I landed on the table, it left footprints. And they matched the footprint to my sneakers. And then I was brought into the juvenile situation, and I obviously lied to the officers. And so what I've learned is that, from that whole situation, there's a couple things I learned. One, make sure you clean up your situation. Don't just roll out the front door. Try to go back out the way you came in. Might be the safest way. And then I learned to also think through my processes a little bit better. As a young kid, you just are daring and doing whatever you can. I think we see that right now with all this COVID going around us. We're young and we're ambitious and nothing can hurt us. And we have that feeling of like we are the strongest entity in this whole world. But at the end of the day, there are things that we can affect long term. For me, I was fortunate because I was underage. Had I been older, I probably would have been a lot more serious in the situation. Also, I had a clean track record at the time. So I was able to get out of that situation. I had to do a lot of hours of cleaning. They made me go back and clean that stupid school, which was my fault. So that was a little bit embarrassing. But other than that, that's one of my little lessons learned moving forward. It's just to think through my processes a little bit better, and I think I still carry those lessons with me today. But yeah, that's a little one out there. Well, what else you got? Let's talk about real quickly. I think we're going to keep these pretty short and sweet and to the point. We got to have like 5 to 10 minutes left in our 30-minute segment. But now I'm thinking let's fast forward. Let's fast forward a little bit for everybody that's around us right now in the Charlotte market. Give me a real estate lesson that you can share real quickly that you've learned over the years, that you made a mistake somewhere, something silly, something fun, maybe door knocking experience, whatever. Just bring it out.
Let's see. So a couple years ago, actually, it was when I first came up here and started working with you again. We went to door knock a neighborhood down in Indian land, group of townhomes. I think we had about
South Carolina, if you all don't know.
Yeah, we had about maybe 150 flyers. We were, putting on doors, knocking on doors, talking to the local residents about their houses. Good market there, or good neighborhood. Anyway, so they all had these shared like front porch areas, like sidewalk porch areas, but they had staggered, so they kind of stepped down, right? So I was at one door and I I knocked on the door, nobody answered, put the flyer in the little screen door area there, and went to step down. Now, normal steps, what, 6 to 8 inches in height? This one was probably about 12 to 18 inches. So as I'm stepping, I'm looking through the window to see if anybody's like kind of looking at me. This is like at the next house. And I expected to, get that 6 to 8 inch stop. Well, the step wasn't there. The ground wasn't there. So I kept going, ended up twisting my ankle, falling down, like banging my back off of the edge of the stair. It hurt a little bit. Luckily, I jump up and I look around. I didn't see anybody. There wasn't anybody in the house there. You were like on the complete other side of the complex. So I was like, all right, nobody saw. I'm good. So I go, I knock on the door. Nobody answers. I put the flyer in. Now I'm limping. And I get to the next house, and right across the parking lot was a guy working on his car. And he's just staring at me, like with kind of a smirk on his face. And I gave a little wave, and he's like, "You all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, man, I'm good." So, what I learned obviously from that was to pay attention to your surroundings better, and to kind of look where you're stepping. But, the fact that we were out there doing it, we were putting the work in. But yeah, just silly mistake.
That's funny. And this one here I can share as well. I know Chad had just come up with us and joined our team not too long thereafter, but it was an expired call on a client. Dang it, I forget his name. It was in Mint Hill, an old military guy, and he tried to do it for sale by owner for quite some time by himself too, and then he went expired, and that's how we got a hold of him. So he had been on the market probably almost close to 2 years. So we went on the appointment. So he's right around 500,000, and in his appointment, he had clearly said that he was going to negotiate my commissions, and the only way that he was going to get the commissions right was I was to lower his listing commission, and then he'll buy with us on the buy side. So I said, okay, great. I'll play the game. I'll work with you. You're gonna have to list at my price because I'm not going to list at your price. And the question after the listing appointment was, well, I'd like to be at this price. And I'm like, I can't sell your house at that price. And if that's the case, I'm just going to have to get up and walk away at this point. And then he thought about it. His wife turned to him and said, maybe you should listen to this kid. He obviously knows what he's talking about. So he's like, fine, I'll take your list price. We'll list it at, was it $495 or $500?
No, he wanted to list at, I think he wanted to list at $425. We ended up listing at $420. And his thing was, so you're telling me you won't take my listing for if we list 5,000 over, and you flat out said, no, because I know we can't sell it for that price. Or it might have been 430, 420. I think he wanted to go 430. We ended up doing 425, something like that. It was like a $5,000 difference. And he couldn't believe that you wouldn't do it for the extra 5,000. But obviously you had run the numbers, so you knew.
So at the end of that listing appointment, I was getting ready to leave. She changed her husband's mind. Said, okay, fine, we'll take it at the price that you want to do, since you're so confident that it's going to sell. I'm like, oh, absolutely. If we're at this price, it's absolutely going to sell. So I held my ground, and we got up and walked out of that appointment with the listing at the 420 price point that we set. We then took the pictures, got it on the market, got everything going. That weekend, we took multiple offers on the property and put it under contract. Now, you would think that would be the end of the story. High five, we won that situation. No. This is not the lesson I was trying to learn, though that is a lesson by holding your ground and knowing that I'm the one, the professional, I'm the expert. You got to listen to me. You obviously listening to yourself got you in the situation you're in. Now it's time to listen to me. So he did do that. Well, here's where I learned my lesson. So in the beginning, he said he would list it if I discounted my commission, which I don't generally try to do. And I did it as a courtesy because he gave me this little story, how he lose all his money, he's dying of cancer. I heard it. I understood it. I was trying to be helpful. So he said, I'll use you on the buy side as long as we can discount on the front side. But I'm not going to sign. He was very adamant. I'm not going to sign a buyer broker agreement on the purchase side. I said, that's fine, because I generally don't charge. I don't make people fill those out anyway. So now he's under contract. We start looking for property. As we're looking for property in the back end, this guy, after I just sold his house that's been on the market for almost 2 years, is going and finding other realtors to help him find property as well. So So we find that out through the whole process. And at the end of all this, he uses a different realtor that purchased his new property instead of working with myself and my team. So my lesson that I learned in that whole situation is, yeah, you can do a lot of great things for people and you can make things turn out to be great stories. But at the end of the day, if we don't follow certain procedures, you can always end up losing somebody. And, you know, not everybody is going to be as genuine as they need to be or appreciative as they need to be. And I thought through all of that, I'm like, man, this guy has been through a lot and I'm helping him. I'm doing everything I can to make things right. I learned that you can't assume that everybody's going to treat you the same way you treated them. That doesn't mean I'm going to change who I am or what I'm going to do going forward. But what it does mean is that don't drop your commission to assume that you're going to make more money on the other side. You know, stick to your guns as well as stick to your processes. You know, unfortunately, I lost a little bit of commission on the list side, and I also lost that buyer client after doing a great service for him. But at the end of the day, that's all about, you know, where your screw ups come into play and where you can build yourself up moving forward. So that was definitely one of my, you know, things that happened to me. And that would just happen last year. You know what I mean? After doing it 17 years, you think I'd have known something different.
It was about a year and a half ago.
Year and a half, right? So that wasn't even that long ago.
And if you remember too, he came back to us on the buy side and said that he had found a house that he wanted to purchase for him and his wife.
Yeah. And
wanted you to give him half of your buy side commission because he knew he didn't pay the buyer commission, that the sellers paid the commission. And he said, well, I'll go ahead and I will use you if you're willing to give me part of your commission. And yeah, that was
a unique situation. But listen, guys, Chad and I, I'm speaking for both of us, man. Chad, also, I appreciate you coming on and let's do this. I think we're having a lot of fun with it. We want to talk about where our screw ups end up to becoming buildups. So this is going to be our new little podcast. We're going to keep it going. We'd love to have other guys just like you or girls that want to jump in and invite you in on the show so we could talk about some of your screw ups that came and turned into buildups. That'd be awesome if you're willing to share. If you are, reach out to us. BuyMitchellHomes@gmail.com, BuyMitchellHomes.com, BuyMitchellHomes@gmail.com. That would be, you can just shoot us an email or give us a phone call, 704-284-8057. And while you're out there, just stop waiting. Go to work, guys. You know, do things, man. Have some fun. Make some failures and learn within those failures. But this is for myself and for Chad. We're going to be signing off. Adios.
See you guys.